Are we good to go on Flip and Mirabai?
Yes. I'll switch that.
Okay.
All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome. I am, for those I didn't meet or who are new, I'm Ben Ogilvy. I'm one of the co-organizers of the Accessibility NYC Meetup. And thanks again for coming out. Appreciate it. I lost my place already. Good start. Okay. Yeah, as I mentioned, restrooms back and to the left. And if you need anything else, let me know. The shout out to other co-organizers of the group, Irina, who you probably met downstairs at the elevator, Thomas, and joining us online and running the YouTube live stream is Meryl, Meryl Evans. And we do live stream all of our events, including this one, on YouTube, and they're available for rewatch later. Thank you to Jolly McPhee from the Internet Society of New York's Accessibility Special Interest Group. I always get tongue-tied on that, for broadcasting the event. And we do use human captioners, not auto captions, for all of our events. So thank you, Mirabai Knight, joining us online as well for captioning, and Flip Wilson from IRA for ASL interpretation. Meryl will be fielding questions on YouTube, which is youtube.com/A11yNYC. So if you're interested, feel free to see what's happening in the chat over there. And we will have time for questions at the end of Thomas's presentation. And we do strive to make this the most accessible meetup in the world. So if you have any feedback on how we can improve for the next one, please don't hesitate to let us know, either in person or ping us on LinkedIn or on the meetup page. Always looking to get better. And I have ignored all of my slides. Right. So want to thank our sponsors for the event that helped make this possible. Hey, welcome. IRA, who provide on-demand access to professional interpreters visually through the IRA Explorer app and with sign language through IRA ASL. Thanks to AKQA, a global digital design and innovation agency, for providing the space that we're in this evening. Thanks to DQ, a leader in digital accessibility tools, services, and training. To Equal Entry, a digital accessibility consultancy focused on results. To Event, the software for accessible development. And Fable, an accessibility platform powered by people with disabilities. Tonight, we are excited to have our own Thomas Logan, co-founder of Accessibility NYC and Equal Entry. Thomas, the floor is yours.
Thank you. All right, so this is going to be a really interesting presentation, I hope. I have been interested in XR accessibility for many, many years. I started a meetup in virtual reality right around during COVID time. It was kind of the perfect use case for accessing virtual reality because people needed to stay home. And I had been used to organizing this event here in New York City. At the time, I was living in Tokyo, and the people in our group that came into our virtual reality meetup were from all over the world. So that was really an interesting just idea for bringing people together.
Even have it up here.
There we go. And Jolly, who just assisted me with the mic, he helped me in virtual reality too. So Jolly came and helped me produce the events in virtual reality, and we actually, the same way that we stream and record the events we do here in New York City, we did the same thing with the events in virtual reality. So basically, during that time, I had tried out a lot of different platforms, and we were always seeking from our charter to make sure that it was accessible and available to everyone. And so we would try different platforms and see what features they had, see what we could improve. And the idea of the group of people that came was, let's learn together and try to improve this technology. So the idea for today's talk was Meta Horizon World. Just seemed like an interesting place for me to bring back my interest in this area and start off the year with looking at sort of latest version of a technology from probably the main player in virtual reality, Meta, to see what they've done, what's there for accessibility, what can we learn from it. So the Meta Quest 3, which is what I have here with me today, one of the things about this technology, thinking about it for accessibility specifically, is that, you know, the first thing is that we have a headset as a controller or input when we're working in it. So this is something where considering being able to move your head all the way to the left or move your head all the way to the right becomes this new accessibility consideration from this platform. And it's not something that necessarily had to be thought about for mobile devices and web devices, but as soon as this is like a mechanism for exploring this type of interface, this is a new thing to consider for accessibility. The two hand controllers, I would say, are also kind of something very unique to say, like, we don't really have, usually when designing for mobile or web, many things that require two hands. I mean, there are some things like maybe complicated keyboard shortcuts, but single-handed use case for sort of like past accessibility things has been more limited, whereas in virtual reality experiences as a novel platform, a lot of the ideas were like, what can I do with two hands? What kind of design patterns can I make? And so that creates new opportunities, but then new accessibility challenges. Having the fact that a microphone is in the device means that you have voice activation, voice input, kind of theoretically available in most experiences, and that's a huge area too for considering future design improvements for accessibility. Oh my gosh, this is I'm showing on the screen this video that kind of shows a little bit of explanation of some scenarios of virtual reality. So on the screen, a woman is wearing a headset and walking around in her living room. And then it's showing that the camera is basically raycasting around the room, knowing where like furniture is, and the person is basically walking around in their living room. And so I think this is also something really interesting that I've seen a big change in my work in virtual reality, is that when I started looking at experiences in 2017, a lot of those experiences were trying to use the idea of walking around. So there would be experiences where you would like walk and like grab something from the ground or, you know, grab something up high, but they really wanted to use this idea that you could walk around in physical space. Some of you may have seen the memes or things on various systems, but there's all kinds of things of people running into their televisions, knocking things off of tables. I famously knocked like a whole jar of salsa over in my bedroom one time because I got scared by a virtual reality zombie. So it's like kind of in its nature that this idea of like walking around with not being able to see with a device on your head has a lot of like safety challenges. And now I could say one good thing for accessibility in 2026, I mean, almost every experience has a seated design concept, and there's more of that still needs to have accessibility patterns, but assuming that there are people, right, that can't walk around and can't physically maneuver in the space due to disabilities, it's really, again, showing that designing for everyone, it also addresses the fact that I think what they learned through the user testing of these experiences, a lot of people were like, I don't want to be walking around in my home, knocking things over. Like, this isn't really a compelling use case for me. Also on the screen, I'm showing the controllers themselves. And so just to point out that the controllers also have unique accessibility challenges because they're kind of shaped to fit to your hands. So they do have sort of an assumed dexterity of like thumbs, middle fingers, index fingers to actually successfully push the buttons. There's different dexterity needed, I would say different than say like a traditional keyboard where touch typing with a single finger is generally able to be done, or tapping on a phone screen. With these hand controllers, there's a lot more dexterity that can be required. One thing that's great on the Quest, I've worked with some other virtual reality devices, but there is a way to use additional input through Bluetooth, so you can connect keyboards, mouse, stylus, gamepads, use your voice. So there are different ways to control it other than using the hand controllers. But you still have to have a developer that designed it that way. Another thing that's really interesting about the design thing, I guess I'm sort of presenting here from this, a lot of comparing to web, so assuming that you might have done some work for web accessibility testing. But I think one thing that's very interesting in virtual reality is that the idea of zooming text or making something larger to read. You know, on our computer screens, we're hitting like Command +++ to magnify. In virtual reality, there's much more of an idea of like you can physically like move closer to text to zoom it or enlarge it. So that just creates, I guess, a really interesting idea pattern for accessibility, that you have to kind of combine maybe some of the ideas of the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, that text should resize 200%, 400%, these kind of ideas, with the idea that sometimes things in VR can be like picked up and like held up to your face and read, just like in the real world. And I just showed a quick video here to show, this is an avatar demonstration of the menu interface for the Quest. And the screen is showing that the menu can be like pulled closer to your face or pushed away from your face by gestures in the interface. So there's sort of a near mode and a far mode. And so again, this is just an interesting idea, I think, for accessibility, that the near mode is increasing the font size, making it easier to see. And so it's just interesting area to consider there. Other unique challenges, so I think we talked these, you know, what if you can't rotate your head? What if you can't use your left or right hand, your thumb, standing up, walking up steps? So the idea that you have the physical human and then you have the virtual avatar that may need to do all of these things. But one of the things that's cool for accessibility, and I made a demo for today that hopefully shows these things, but being able to do voice input to control the interface, having haptic feedback, so being able to have those hand controllers can rumble and give vibrations. Spatial sound, so again, most of the time when you're designing interfaces, you can't really assume people are using headphones, and you can't use like sound coming out of the right ear or sound coming out of the left ear. With the virtual reality headset, you can assume that the spatial sound is available to do interesting things with. And then also using the hands themselves, like without the physical controllers, are also, you know, interesting areas. A new advance that I noticed from 2026 is that Meta has this idea of pulling up accessibility settings while you're setting up the device. This is kind of in my work as an accessibility consultant. It's such an important scenario, and many companies that build products don't even think about this. It's like they might have accessibility settings that work after the product's been set up or configured and logged into, but what about when you're unpackaging, you just purchase the device and you want to use it right away? So this is a new thing that the settings that the device does support. There's actually a voice prompt to tell you can bring up those settings by triple pressing the Meta button on one of the handsets, on one of the hand controllers. And I think that's great that they're building that. Still more work to go, but really that is showing more innovation here, that they have that consideration that people need accessibility from the very beginning as they're setting up the device. Some other things that are built into the operating system, you can change the contrast of the actual display. So you're wearing these lenses on your face, and you can change the brightness and contrast across the entire display in the settings. You can also do some color correction settings to change some filters, say for people with red-green color blindness. To be honest, I would love to still know from people who are red-green colorblind if turning on that setting can like automatically fix an application that wasn't designed well for color differences. You know, skeptical, but I really don't know that much about it. And then another place that's really good now is this text-to-speech. So I did user testing with people who were blind and low vision as part of my work in the past for accessibility, and it was very difficult to navigate the menus. There was really no screen reader, no announcement of what's being hovered on the screen. So this is sort of text-to-speech. You can sort of, with the hand pointer, move your hand around and hear what the pointer is pointing at. It's not necessarily the nicest interface into the experience, but it is something that would enable you to say, once I hear what I want, I can click the trigger, launch it. And additionally, for people who are low vision, this can be a great way to say, okay, I think that's the right thing I want to click on. Let me hear the name or label of that, and I can click on it. All right, so next thing, screen reader. So this is my, I guess, biggest passion. You know, I've spent over 20 years working on accessibility, and I feel like every technology that comes out, if it's digital, it needs the concept of a screen reader. And the expectation for me in 2026, even in, I don't know, 2010, it was like when a device is built, even a new device, like the idea of having a screen reader available, that's sort of the first step. Like you have to have that. You know, I know there's unique challenges, but really just from the standard part of like using the Quest, launching an experience, you know, you have to navigate a menu. You have to get to a thing. It's just like the start menu on Windows or something. We've had this idea for a long time. And so about 7 months ago, Meta released a screen reader into the operating system. So I'm happy that there is now some functionality there. It's been experimental for the last 7 months. So again, that's one of the questions I would have, and get to talk with people from Meta. It's like, I don't know what the path forward for that is, but it's sort of a frustrating thing, I think, to be told your accessibility feature is experimental, and there's no real like commitment or communication of when that would become more available. One thing interesting about that, I mean, the design pattern, I'm not going to demo it here, but it really uses the hand controller, so you don't have to be pointing and sort of having a concept of what's visually on the screen. You are basically using flick gestures with the hand controllers to move through. And I'd say it's kind of feels similar to using voice over screen reader on an iPhone, but you're able to like move into menus and move out of menus. I thought this was really funny. I looked on the user forum for anything where people were discussing the screen reader, and someone said, is there a way to turn the screen reader off without controllers? Turning it on completely disabled both controller and hand tracking, making the Quest unusable. And I kind of laughed at this user experience, because this is how the screen reader on the iPhone used to be. That I used to teach classes, you know, just different Fortune 500 companies, and it'd be like, all right, everyone turn on your screen reader. And there would inevitably be several people just panicked, like, I cannot get the screen reader to turn off. I don't know how to navigate, right, to get to the off button. So it's the same problem here. And I would say that that's something that, you know, again, for an experimental feature, the first thing I thought of is like, at least having a voice command to say, start the screen reader, stop the screen reader. It's really great that there's voice input on the device, and from an accessibility wins, it seems like a really small, just additional action to put in that would immediately solve like this problem. Because I basically had the same problem as well as this person. I'd say, you know, you just really got to listen to the instructions of how to use a screen reader. you can get to it, but I guess their point was like they didn't have the controllers or the hand input, so then I think you really are stuck. And can't remember if there was a response to that or not, but let's hope. It was 5 months ago. I hope they were able to get the screen reader turned off. For mobility, this is also in the operating system, so you're able to switch the controller thumbsticks. So this requires rebooting the hardware, but if there was an experience that just had a hard requirement on you got to use the left controller to do something, you can switch the device so that it is able to work that way. Again, I think that's not really something we would expect you to need to use in a system, but it's sort of there, and I guess it's probably something that can be in a problem. At least it's an operating system way to like work around it. Adjusting height is another interesting piece. So that seated position, depending on how an experience is built, different people might have the headset at different heights depending on their stature and where they're sitting. And so this is the idea that if the headset is reflecting the floor and the distance from the floor, some experiences, the way they're designed, it may need to be raised up or lowered down to like have that experience work. Okay. All right. So this is something I really got into with doing virtual reality. I can go on a whole spiel of this, but before digital accessibility, there's physical accessibility, and the Americans with Disabilities Act, a lot of the specifications, I've always been like, whoa, that's not a world that I go into. That's a totally separate profession. But what's interesting, as soon as I started doing virtual reality, you are getting into like everything you're building is using like physical measurements. People that are really good at working in virtual reality are basically like architects, and they are building experiences to scale and the human body. So really, I think the design patterns of like what the Americans with Disabilities Act requires for like physical interaction with kiosks, banking ATMs, these can apply in an interesting way into virtual reality, because as you're simulating things that exist in the real world, this is the exact specification of the reach requirements, that for the height, nothing can be over 48 inches high. So like the hand motion is like not having an assumption that you can do a rotation of the arm up high to push a button. And then down at the bottom, it would be 15 inches minimum for like reaching down to touch and interact with something. So that's something that I want to explore in the virtual world more, working with, but because you actually do physical measurements, if you work on your world from that perspective, you could really use these to probably see that there's going to be ways to avoid someone having to reach too much with a device. And again, this is just to show like, maybe you all aren't familiar with the physical ADA. I'm not that familiar, but it's interesting to see how many illustrations there are. There's things about sign placement, color contrast, a lot of requirements, right, that just don't have an application in the digital domain. But like I said, I think all of these things, like having side reach, forward reach, those are all things that could apply in a virtual reality environment. This is really important, and this is something I'll applaud for. I'll be able to demo this in the Horizon world. But another thing that I found quite frustrating in a lot of virtual reality experiences was the reach requirement. There were many times where I'm literally like having to get my controller like down to the floor to grab something. So I am physically able to like get down on the floor to like do that operation, but yeah, not a great experience. I didn't enjoy doing that. And one of the design patterns that's sort of built in now is maybe like more of a flick gesture, where like if I wanted to grab that chair right there, I could like flick my hand at it and it would pull towards me, and basically I've like pointed at the thing I want, it can like come towards me. That's something that some experiences have built into their worlds, and then that makes that a lot more accessible. My point with Horizon Worlds, one of the things that I think is maybe my biggest point for making virtual reality accessible, is most of the time things need to happen by default. The more that you can build it into you have to do something else to do the wrong thing, the better the design is. And so what I found in Horizon Worlds is like I have some cubes that I put in there. And by default, like most of the objects that you use in Horizon Worlds have like a grab distance that's much longer. So even if your hand isn't really that close to the object, when you press the trigger to grab it, it's able to be sucked up and like come into your hand. And so that was great because I didn't have to do any extra work to do that. And unfortunately, like most other accessibility features in VR, I find that it's like, yes, there are things you can do. Yes, you can build it. But that means the developer has to set aside like their developer resources to build those accessibility features. And I think my experience in almost all domains of technology is like anytime it's extra work, it's something for the people to say, well, that's a P3 or P4, or we're going to get to it. And in their software development lifecycle, they never get to it. So systems need to have designs where, yeah, things can happen by default and work well. So I mentioned the haptics. For hearing, they also, as I said, there's a left and right channels. So you have, just like the iPhone, you can combine the channels to mono audio, or you can balance between the left and right. And now they do have live captions in the device. Again, it varies on whether those captions work right in every experience, but the captions do work in Horizon Worlds. So again, it'd be another thing for me, for my Accessibility VR meetup, having captioning is a hard requirement. Like we have to have that. Like we've always had this meetup with human captions. And I think the thing with Horizon Worlds, I'm happy that we have the accessibility feature for captions, but they are only automatic captions. And there is no mechanism to bring in the stream text or the stream of the human captioner. So Mirror by Night, who we've worked with for 11 years at this meetup, does amazing captions, much higher quality. In my Horizon Worlds presentations, I want the human captioning to be that increased accuracy, that better experience. And we were able to work with her when we hosted our meetups in the past. Other platforms let us bring in captions into them. But Horizon Worlds is like a closed system. So again, I applaud that it has captions. It's nice that it's in there by default, but there is no mechanism to then make high quality captions be available. And I will be submitting that feature request. I just show a couple quick screenshots that they do talk about in the, I would say the captioning considerations for VR is one of the main things Meta has done some documentation on. So they talk about when you place captions in the virtual world, where to place them. And they say like about half the distance of the far field or 1 meter away, but give people the option to move them. So like I said, everything in VR is like these physical measurements. So like their recommendation there is like that's the distance from the eye or the head controller that's appropriate, but give someone the option to move them. So let me just point that out right there. Like they're basically telling you, here's a good way to do captions. To actually place those captions, since there's not a like captioning system in the code, I, as a developer, need to build my display that's here, and I would need to like position the captions for my world to do that. And so again, I can just say there's a lot of captioning experiences in VR, and because there isn't this like built system of like this is the standard, people implement it differently. So some do put it too far back. Do place captions where they won't obscure tasks. Don't obstruct a user's task or important information. So again, like here physically in the room, we have the captions down at the bottom of the screen. They're not blocking like the slides that I'm presenting, but this can happen quite a bit in VR where the captions, as they pop up, if you can't move them and they stay there, they're basically blocking you from maybe doing the interaction in VR. And so obstructing a user's task is a big accessibility challenge. Do provide speaker attribution, so you need to know who's speaking. You know, this is true for web accessibility too, but a lot of times people have captions, but you know, which person is actually speaking. They do have that in Horizon Worlds. And then this was just from their development code, little geeky, but it does mention sometimes you may want to customize how you display captions for your NPCs speaking. And then they have a documentation at least of how you provide the caption output to a custom text UI or text area. So I will applaud that it's like mentioned and considered in the documentation. I think the opportunity there, though, is like it'd be great if it was just, here's how you plug into our captioning system, and we handle like positioning and allowing the captions to be moved. You don't have to like build that yourself. All right, and now my second section, this is very risky. And I have it working on my phone and I have it working on the headset. But basically, Horizon Worlds is a platform that you can access in a headset, on a mobile phone, or on a website. So that is something I think really interesting. Just the fact that they had to support this product on multiple devices already builds in a lot of accessibility awareness, because it's like this idea that when you build your experience, you can't assume someone's in a headset. So like you can't assume that someone has two hand controllers. So people can do things with the hand controllers, but sort of built into the Horizon World building for it is like an assumption, hey, some people are going to be joining from a mobile phone, so you need to have that implemented. So I think it's kind of neat that it does make you think about accessibility, maybe for a developer that's not thinking about it in the traditional accessibility guidelines method, but it is making things accessible when you support the different devices because they have different capabilities. This is what the interface looks like. So every world gets like a page where you can write a description and put an image. This is me in the fireplace world, and on the back we actually have, Ben is wearing it, the Accessibility New York City t-shirt. So one of the wild features of Horizon Worlds, you can build and sell clothes for the avatars in the world. So now I have the Accessibility New York City t-shirt on my avatar in the world. So this is the customization options for the avatar. Maybe it looks a little like me, but you have some settings. And one of the things I wanted to highlight, we've seen in other platforms, is what kind of options do they have for representing that you do have a disability. So this has been a really interesting discussion about virtual worlds and socializing. Some people are like, oh, I can go into the world and be anonymous. I can, change my gender, change everything. Like, you don't have to represent how you represent in the world. But then there are people where they're like, no, I want to represent exactly how I show up in the real world. That's how I want to be represented in the social world. And so on the Meta platform, you do have the ability to do the cochlear implant design for the avatar. So again, I applaud that. That's like a great step that's built in. But there's a lot of other things, right, to think about and consider, and other platforms have had available. Probably number one is the idea of a wheelchair-seated avatar. So the avatars can sit in Horizon Worlds, but there's not sort of a built-in model of like being a seated avatar and moving through the world. So it's definitely something that can and should be designed right into the platform. They are also working on a feature to draw avatar legs. So as soon as I saw that feature, it's like, okay, you're going to have developers thinking about the legs display. Also goes into here like the same way now. You got two arms to think about for accessibility. You have two legs. So limb differences, amputees. These are things, assistive tools like the white cane, the guide dog, crutches. Other platforms have had the ability to customize down to that level. So that's just an opportunity to like recommendation to Meta there. Inside of their captions, so you can customize the speaker. You see the speaker names, and they're installed by default. But they don't do directionality, font color, font style, or caption position. So I can't move them around. I can't resize them. A lot of the things that you expect to have other features for captions, you basically have to go with the presentation that they have. And then speaking live, this is, I'm going to try to play the video and narrate it, but this is pretty cool that we're going to be having a presentation in March about augmented communication devices. So for people who are nonverbal, being able to use a synthesized voice to speak on your behalf is like one of the communication mechanisms. So this is cool that on the headset only, you have the ability to use a speak live feature. And I think the sound won't come through, so I'm going to explain it. But this is my colleague Jed avatar, and he's asking me with the captions, "Hi, I'm Jed from the Philippines. Where are you from?" And then I, in my live speech, have an option to say United States, and it reads to him United States. And then he says, "Do you want to play an accessibility game, question mark?"
Yes.
And there's my synthesized voice saying yes.
Okay, great. That was
So I can basically say yes. I also have these gestures, emoji gestures, so that's also very popular for people, that you can have like a nonverbal interaction, you know, a rudimentary sign language with these emoji gestures. But the key feature to talk about here is augmented communication device. People have different things they want to say. I just picked United States as something I customized to say, oh, I can expect when I meet people, a common question would be like, where are you from? And so that wasn't one of the default spoken text, but I can add that as an option. And as I said, the design of most augmented communication devices is you set up, you know, the vocabulary that you use most frequently. So I think that is a cool feature in the tool that they've designed, sort of a standard set to work with, but you can customize and change them. All right, this is my Horizon world, and most of the people that when we used to meet, I'd say we had like about the same amount of people we have here in the physical world would come into the virtual world. And in this world, I've basically created nothing too fancy, but I hope to do in next iterations, making it more fancy. I have the ability to display slides and then have some interactivity in the world. So in the world, I would prompt everyone to join me in the world. I did meet one person here who is a Horizon Worlds user. But I'm going to basically do the demonstration just with two people. I can run one on my computer and one on my phone. So this is the sort of prompt for getting into the experience as a web user. It's called A11yVR Meetup, so accessibility, virtual reality. Okay, Meryl is here. There's great, Meryl's here. And this is one of my avatars. I'm able to sort of pivot around. Again, another one of the challenges of Horizon Worlds, there's a lot of children on it. I made my world 18 plus. I was not used to usually having things 18 plus, but I wanted to make sure this world, even when I was doing the demo, didn't have random people coming into it, causing chaos. We've experienced all these different scenarios with our VR presentations in the past. But I think with that said, that's why I don't have really anyone here to interact with. Next month, I will be doing it just only in virtual reality. If you are interested in that, I'll invite you to join. But basically what I built in here was to show some of the cool things you can do in a meetup style environment in the world. So in this world, oops, I gotta get around him there. I would basically be this like host of like a little game show. Well, there's Meryl too. Hi, Meryl. So my first question was going to be, hey, people that are here with us, are you joining on the web or are you joining in your headset? Oops. And I'm joining on the web. So me and Meryl are both on the web. We can go over here. Like, this is kind of like an interesting idea of like, you know, you do these voting or polling. In this experience, the idea is you can use a avatar and actually move to vote. So if I was in VR, I'd walk over here. Oops, this is so I would have to walk over here to add that vote. And what I did was, for these questions, I was doing this point of first I'm using red and green to say, okay, these are kind of traditionally the ones to know for accessibility. Don't do that. Like if you say go to the red area, someone that can't discern red is going to have an accessibility issue. So I made another question. Oops. Where are you? Are you in New York or are you not in New York? New York or nowhere, right? So if you're not in New York, you go on that side. And basically what I did in this option was start adding a sound effect so that the person, as they roll into, oh, and then do you like cats or dogs? So let's see if anyone, there's this one. What were you guys thinking here, cats or dogs? Oh, choose one. All right, I'm just gonna flip. Okay, I hear cats. I hear dogs. All right. It's very quiet here, but it's like a woo, pitch up when I enter into the space and woo when I go out of the space. So again, I just did it as this simple idea. Oh yeah. Yeah, I think I did it with my voice pretty close. I also did one with a meow and a bark, and it's like, yeah, you can do like fun sound effects with that. But I think the idea of it was like, when you do a presentation in VR, you do something in VR, if you're just showing slides and it's like you're going through a slide deck, our lesson learned from doing LIVER for a few years, it's like, yeah, you really are like, it should just be in a Zoom. Like there's nothing like fun or compelling here. So I did this one as just a simple one to even say, you know, if we were trying to do this in this room, it would be chaos. But in VR, you know, you can set it up this way and you can, you know, add sound, make it funner. And lastly, I did haptics. So if I was in like a different, I was using the headset, I would be able to feel the right hand controller when I went on the right side vibrate. And I could feel the left-hand controller when I voted on the left side vibrate. And what I thought was cool about this, I have a colleague who's blind that I didn't get to practice this with before, but knowing we had people who were blind in our meetup in the past, having something like this where people can still interact, like people are able to like follow avatars' voices with the spatial sound, but now having like sound effects to know like, oh, you're on the cat vote or you're on the dog vote. I really just want to start modeling some practices of simple things to implement in a virtual world to like illustrate the principles. And then my last one, which I don't know if the people will be able to hear me, I was very proud of this game. It took me a lot of time to build. It's color contrast cubes where you need to, it's a game where everyone can go pick up the cube and choose which one has the least contrast and which one has the most contrast. So we can kind of try to make this a little interactive here. But the idea was that everyone would have one stand in a line. The person that stands on the farthest left, this is the cube with the least contrast. The person that stands on the right, this is the cube with the highest contrast. And I think I also did this to point out another unique challenge of contrast is the lightness and the light source affects how easy something is to read. Well, in virtual reality, you have all control of the lighting. I have this world like extremely bright, so the settings that I set for those colors are not actually representing like, you know, sort of like how the design thing was thought of. And so it's interesting, even on the cube face, I put it on each side so you can see the shadow, and it does look, you know, darker on other ones. But then I can run over it and ta-da, like reveal them. So I'll be able to like play this game in the next one as interactivity. But I also made this game because I thought we can use it to test the color differences and get a preference. Oh, I just remembered I have one more question I want to quiz you all on too. Okay. This one. And I can ask the room here too. Let's see if I can. which text do you prefer, the one on the left or the one on the right for reading? And this is a visual question. Anyone have a preference? The right. Right. Left. Okay, I was doing this to be dramatic. This is the Times New Roman on the left and Calibri on the right. And, a little while back, there was a big discussion around, changing that. I mean, one of the things I thought was interesting about this is it does illustrate that, a lot of the text representations are the personal preferences. And so having the ability to change and modify the text is what's important. It's like not necessarily that there is this universal font that's good for accessibility, but I did that one in there too. So my idea of building this is like, I will be having the meetup more in VR in the future, but I really encourage you all, if you're interested in this space, like one of the ideas to build this is then to be able to talk with Meta or other people like more concretely about these are things we need as developers, this is my experience of doing it. And like, for example, the sound effect of the cat meowing or the dog barking, Meryl, who's deaf and hard of hearing on our team, I would want her to see the sound effect that I actually was doing a dog bark or doing on the cat meowing. So I would want that to be something I can add into this experience. And I think with that, I have talked enough, but my demo did work. I didn't go into VR because I thought it's just a little much, but thanks for the claps. Yeah, and I think like my last point is just to say, it is evolving. I feel like I had a lot of fun actually doing it. Like during COVID, I was doing the VR meetup a lot, and then, when the world opened up, I kind of stopped doing it. But doing this project again, it reminded me of like you meet a lot of different people, and the way that the interactions were, it really was like doing this project brought me back to like, oh, I enjoyed a lot of the people I met in this space, and there is ongoing development. It's nice to see there are new features, and I think it's like I want to keep encouraging that to grow. I do plan to log some of the feedback to the Meta team from what I learned in this experience, and if you're interested in more, you can join the NYC sister meetup group, A11yVR, to do that. Thank you all.
Does this? Thank you. So we have some questions from the online audience, and then we're also gonna be taking questions from y'all, and we are gonna go one by one. So gonna start with the online one, if that's okay. Curious to know y'all's approach. Curious to know how y'all approach the process of alt text for all of the avatar looks.
Yes, so alt text for the avatar looks, this was a huge passion part. I mentioned I started working with people who are blind and screen reader users on technology, and having alt text is sort of this baseline requirement. So the 3D objects that you use in those worlds, there's ways, right, to set these, but there is no standard, right, of just having a way to label those objects. Incidentally, when you create the objects, like my fashion t-shirt of Accessibility New York, there's a name field and there's a description field like for the store. And that was always one of our points, like these 3D objects, there's a lot of them. So people need to search for them, and they need well-written descriptions and names, just like people who are blind want to hear like a description of what the object is. So there is a challenge in VR of like, there's so much information, just like all of us in this room, there would be a lot to describe. That is a challenge, but our point had been we should have all of that data there at the baseline format. Like then assistive technologies can build things on top of it. Yeah, maybe the screen reader doesn't read out everything that someone's wearing, but if you ask what someone's wearing, oh, I can navigate through the like shirt, read the name and description, pants, name and description. All of that should be a lot easier to do. So definitely we'll put that into Meta as well. yeah, it's definitely my biggest ask in the VR world is to have that.
Okay. Any questions from you?
I got it. Has Meta provided, now that they have, at least in a pre-release, a screen reader, have they provided guidance to developers on what patterns, best practices make for a good screen reader user experience that developers can follow, so that users have some consistency in what to expect from one experience to the next? Because I know for a long time, each developer was kind of on their own to come up with their own implementation, like you mentioned with captions. But now that there is, at least theoretically, a screen reader at the OS level, have they provided guidance and patterns in the same way that Android or iOS does with sample apps and guidance of here's how to leverage this in a way that users can come to expect consistency?
Yeah, not that I've seen, unfortunately. I mean, definitely open to, if anyone has connections to Meta, to get more information. I think right now my expectation is the screen reader is meant to navigate the operating system UI, and then the idea is still you need to be a self-voicing application for every application that you build, which was my point about having that be that, hey, you can build a screen reader. Oh my gosh, well then people aren't, like you said, they're not going to build them consistently. They're going to work differently. It's not going to be something easy to use. So yeah, I hope they do that, but I'm not aware of any right now.
We have some more online questions. First, there is a comment. Meryl's avatar had a cochlear implant on her right ear, like she does in real life. Very cool. And then the other question was, how did you get your A11y NYC t-shirt on your avatar? How do we customize our t-shirts?
Yes, to create the objects. I mean, this definitely seems like this was one of the big ideas for Meta when they changed their name to Meta. Just imagining this ecosystem. So they have a creator developer portal, and they have basically a clothing maker. So you would just need to get the creator account, and then you can get into the ability to create the objects. As far as I could tell, I wasn't allowed to make the object free, but if you're making the object, you get it for free. So I just took advantage of okay, it's cool that you basically can use AI to make them, or you can upload graphics, or they give you the meshes that you can design, and then yeah, theoretically you can sell them too.
All right, I know you, I'm the other Horizon World person. I know you said you were on from 2022, and those early days, there was and this guy is still around, his name is Dean. He's a deaf person on Horizon Worlds. He is the creator of Gatsby's. Before he created Gatsby's, he had other worlds, and he was trying to connect with a lot of deaf people on Horizon World, not many, but I do remember those early days. He was accessing a digital asset called Pigeon. I think the creator username was Pigeon, so it was like a keyboard, and you can type out a message to a deaf person, and you can show it to them, like a tablet at the time. Then it got discontinued somehow. Horizons, somehow it didn't work after a while, and now they've been implementing their own systems since then. But I do remember way back, trying to use other tools. I don't know if you even remember that, but that was an asset that was available a while ago, several years ago.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I mean, it's interesting because it's like these designs, you know, every design is like the opportunity to sort of make the pattern. And when we did our meetups in Mozilla Hubs, like we didn't need to have, you know, like an object to sort of write on or do the text. They actually had a text chat in addition to the world. So you had just like full access to type into it. And so we were able to have multimodal of like talking and typing conversations. Still were like difficulties with that design because how far away should the chats pop up? And like, you know, if someone's typing the chat, there was a notification sound. So we had to like do a lot of customizations. And again, like a lot of lessons learned, but I think, yeah, to your point too, that there's been people wanting to have this accessibility for many years, and you know, that's my perspective too, that platforms have had things that are more accessible too than like Horizon Worlds. So like if Horizon Worlds is sort of the biggest one from the company that makes the device, I'm like, that's the one I think should have the most accessibility because it's sort of the easiest one then for other worlds to build off of. So I'd say that it's still that opportunity, and even for my meetup, I'll still be looking at other worlds too, like VR Chat and Rec Room and Roblox. I mean, anyone that would make it more accessible, you know, people with disabilities would want to go to that one, and like that's what I would want to promote also with the meetup is like use the most accessible one.
Any?
If I'm not mistaken, the news came through this week that Zuckerberg had laid off a bunch of people. Did you get any feedback on that? And are the accessibility crew still there?
I did feel like I think 2 days after I posted this, we decided to do this January meetup, and just like, okay, I'll do this. And then 2 days later, that announcement came out that like a lot of the people were laid off, and yeah, it's really unfortunate. I mean, it's definitely like a big change. I think people that were working on some of the gaming studios that are big for VR got acquired by Meta. I don't know specifically how it impacts people on the accessibility team, but I did, you know, read coverage that even with that many people being let go, it's still like a large team of people working on VR. And as you see the augmented reality, extended reality, virtual reality, those have all always kind of played in the space together. So I think even with that change, you know, you'll still be seeing like there's a lot of great stuff from Meta with the Ray-Ban glasses, you know, so.
They did it for optics.
Yeah. Optics.
Yeah, they can afford it. They had money. It's not the issue.
You're right.
Yeah.
The issue was they were showing the whole
Feedback on
Yeah, so the comment there was just that, you know, it was like to show the world they can be profitable. So it's just, they can't afford it, but, you know, they made a choice to like communicate that. And it's like a big thing for them changing off of that path because Zuckerberg was so tied to the metaverse. I think that's another interesting point too. The reason Horizon Worlds is big on mobile is because there's a lot more people with the mobile devices. It's competing also with Roblox, which is quite popular. So like I said, I think an interesting side effect of being that they have to support the mobile, it does make accessibility more, like in things like the grabbing and some of the stuff I talked about. The fact that it worked sort of by default, I thought that was good. And I was like, well, supporting mobile, I think, had a positive effect in that case.
Cool. We have time for one more question, please.
Hey, Sir Tom. Thanks for all the sharing the lessons. So if you could go back in time, right, and you could actually talk to the team before they released Meta Horizon Worlds, what are the 1 to 3 things that you would want them to really build or focus on before deploying or releasing what they released?
That's a great question. I think probably like starting with have people with disabilities of all types like participate in the like user design feedback to saying like what priorities do you hear? Like I said, I covered a lot of different things, even like avatar representation. I would be listening to people and saying, what is the minimum functionality? Like if they can't build in the functionality, what I think would have been cool or what I would have liked to see is the sample SDK world. I'm a big person on like the things that companies put into the software development kit for developers. Developers cut and paste that a lot. They like start from that as their template. And so having one of the first worlds that all the creators were trained on have like all the accessibility features built into it, even if they had to be built maybe a little custom, that would have been like a huge step forward to like setting the creator community to like, oh, I implement this piece this way, this piece this way. So I'd probably say that's my biggest one, is like have documentation of a world that works, and have people learn from it.
Right.
I think we're
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we're at time.
We're at time.
We got to let our captioner and ASL interpreter go. We've got some last minute, some wrap up announcements. So, one quick one, but then we need to wrap up.
Okay. So hello everybody. First of all, I want to thank the accessibility group in New York for the great work you are doing to make the world more accessible. I always met a lot of people who told me that this is their first day here. They come because they are just curious, and I think this is a good starting point to help raise awareness about this topic. Also, thank you, Thomas, for this topic, because as I used to say, accessibility is for technology in general. And we don't have so much talks on VR, on this kind of stuff, so thank you for that and for the lessons. Now my question is really specific to the VR world compared to what we know with websites and apps. Two questions in one. The first thing, what is the concept or something you found in the VR world which can be a very good step for accessibility natively, which is very different from what we have with websites and apps? And in the other hand, what is the most risky thing you see also in the VR world, which need to pay really attention to build something more accessible? Thank you.
Okay, well, I think the thing that's the most, the thing that's really take away from it, I think having voice input, spatial sound, and like haptics, I mean, these are just the things that I think the fact that those are built in there, all the things you can do with that to like add depth is like, okay, maybe if people are building assistive technologies, we're always talking to people building the, the websites or the end product, but the tools people use to access information, like having, touch feedback, having sound that's like localized. These are things where, they can also, you can do those on mobile phone, you can do that as well. So just taking some of those design patterns and being like, oh yeah, we have more ways to work than just the traditional stuff. I guess since VR, you have to build it all yourself. It's kind of like, okay, well, like when you are building things yourself, what are the designs that really make things better for people? And then I also just love the like augmented communication device. I mean, I don't see that in things like Zoom and Google Hangouts. So I just think that's interesting when you think of social, like having, and I like that we'll have a presentation on augmented communication devices in March, but that's another area. Thank you.
So much. Thank you so much
And
again.
we've got one announcement in the room too. So.
Oh, okay. Do you want to do it now, or
Yeah,
should
maybe,
you?
let me just do that really quick. Sorry.
Oh, you have it.
Call you up here to do a quick VR research announcement. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Hi everyone, my name is Ricardo. I'm a student at Toronto University. So we're doing this research in VR. We're basically studying VR in higher education. There's this platform we're working with, it's called Etstutia. So they had a lot of development, a lot of advancements in disabilities and accessibility. So what we want to do is a focus group. Everyone's invited. We're having this focus group and we're offering a $25 gift card for everyone that participates. Over there, we're going to show the platform, show how it works. You can also join in VR if you want. And we're gathering your thoughts, your opinions, and on all the accessibility features. So yeah, we would like to see you there. And Thank you, Thomas, for the opportunity.
Thanks. Yeah, and I'll just add one plug to that too, that the last time I did an A11yVR meetup was about 15 months ago, and it was in EdStudio, the platform they're just doing the research on, and I really applaud the team there. You know, there's a lot of accessibility features built into that platform, and that's why I did the meetup in that platform back then. And yeah, this research will help them keep it going. Thanks.
All right. Thank you so much again. All right. Just a few announcements to finish our event. So please join our accessibility A11y NYC Slack community. There is a QR code. You can also request an invitation from any current web A11y Slack member or also the organizers. If you want to speak at one of the events, we now accept the applications through this form with the QR code, or you can also find it at the link bit.ly /A11y NYC speaker. Our next event is going to be on Tuesday, February 3rd. And it's Every JIRA Ticket is Your Accessibility Policy by Charlie Triplett. Then also we ask if anyone's hiring for any accessibility roles. If yes, let us know. Maybe next time. And then also some thank yous thank you to y'all for attending this event. This is what makes the community and this meetup so great. Thank you so much. Also, thank you to our sponsors. It's ERA, AKQA, Evinced, Equal Entry, Fable, and DQ. And also to our team, Jolie, Flip, Mirabai, Meryl, Ben, and Thomas. Yeah, and thank you so much again. Here is the QR for the research thing.
And for those in the room, you're welcome to hang out for another 20 minutes or so, get something to drink, socialize, and then at about 9 o'clock, woo,